Ever wondered why men act so confusing when it comes to love? One day he looks at you like you're the only woman in the room, and the next he's as distant as if you were a stranger. Don't worry, he's not broken. He's just moving through something psychology calls the stages of falling in love. And here's the twist. Women almost always miss stage 2. Not because you're clueless, but because men are experts at hiding what they really feel. On the surface, he seems calm, detached, even uninterested, but inside his emotions are running wild. Stay with me, because once you understand these 3 stages, his hot and cold behavior will finally make sense, and you'll know exactly when he's falling harder than he wants to admit. Defilling. In love isn't just butterflies, late-night texts, or sweet words. For men, it's a deep psychological process that unfolds in 3 very different stages. And stage 2? That's the one that decides everything. The spark that starts it all. Every story of love begins with a spark. It is that first invisible moment when something shifts inside a man. From the outside, it can look like nothing special. A glance, a shared laugh, a conversation that seems ordinary. But inside him, the unconscious has already started to respond. Carl Jung believed that what we call attraction is never random. It is the meeting of hidden forces, a mirror awakening something he didn't even know was waiting. That is why the spark feels so magnetic. At this first stage, a man is not in control. His body reacts before his mind can catch up. He feels drawn, curious, restless. He wants to be near you without fully understanding why. This is not yet love, but it is the beginning of a process that could transform him completely. The spark ignites a kind of energy that refuses to be ignored. From a woman's perspective, stage 1 often looks obvious. He reaches out more, sends messages, pays attention to details, finds excuses to see you. His eyes light up differently, and his presence carries more intensity. Women often interpret this as proof that he is already in love, but the spark is only an opening. It is powerful, yes, but it is not yet the foundation of commitment. It is the first pull of the unconscious, the sign that something is beginning to move beneath the surface. The beauty of this stage is in its purity. It is not about logic or careful planning. It is raw, instinctive, and alive. He may not even want to show it, but the spark pushes through his behavior. He remembers your words, notices small changes in your mood, and feels strangely protective without knowing why. His unconscious has recognized something in you, something familiar, yet mysterious. And yet, this is also where illusions are strongest. Many women believe that the way a man behaves during this spark is who he will remain. They expect the excitement to last forever, the messages to keep coming, the intensity to stay constant. But Jung would remind us, the unconscious always moves in cycles. What begins with light will eventually bring out shadow. That spark will soon test him, pulling him into doubts, fears, and questions he didn't expect. This is why stage 1 is dangerous if misunderstood. It is the opening of the door, not the whole house. The man feels the pull, but he has not yet decided if he will step fully inside. His unconscious is still exploring, still trying to make sense of what this attraction means. And because of that, his behavior can shift quickly. One moment he is warm, the next he seems distant. Women often mistake this as a loss of interest, but it is simply the reality of the spark. It is unstable, bright, and brief, unless it deepens. Still, stage 1 is essential. Without the spark, nothing else can unfold. It is the seed of love, the first sign that his soul has recognized yours. Jung often spoke of synchronicity, the meaningful coincidences that connect people. The spark is one of those moments. It is not random. It is the unconscious saying, "Pay attention. This person matters." For the man, this stage is exciting and terrifying. Exciting because he feels alive in a way he cannot ignore. Terrifying because something in him knows he is no longer in control. He may laugh it off, hide it behind jokes, or pretend he doesn't care. But deep inside, the spark has already planted itself. It will not go away easily. For the woman, The lesson of this stage is to see it for what it is, a beginning, not an end. Don't confuse his excitement with lasting love. Don't assume his attention now guarantees devotion later. The spark is beautiful, but it is fragile. If he is to move beyond it, he must face the hidden stage that comes next, the stage women almost always miss. So remember, stage 1 is about energy, recognition, and possibility. It is the unconscious pulling him toward something greater. But love is not built on sparks alone. It is built when the spark is tested, when the unconscious confronts its fears, and when a man decides whether to surrender or retreat. That is why stage 1 is magical, but only the beginning. The hidden chaos women don't see. If the spark feels exciting and almost magical, the second stage is the complete opposite. It is messy, confusing, and often misunderstood. This is the stage most women never notice, or if they do, they misread it completely. On the outside, it looks like he is pulled away. He may act cold, distant, even uninterested. He may take longer to reply, avoid making plans, or seem distracted when he is with you. And this is where many women believe he has lost interest. But the truth is far more complex. Carl Jung believed that when strong emotions arise, the unconscious begins to resist. It pushes back, forcing the person to confront not only their desires but also their fears and shadows. For a man, stage 2 is exactly that. A battle between what he feels and what he is afraid to admit. The closer he gets, the more vulnerable he becomes, and vulnerability is something many men are not taught to handle. Inside, he is in chaos. His emotions are louder than his logic, but he tries to control them by pretending he doesn't care. This is why women miss stage 2. They take his distance at face value, when in reality, he is fighting within himself. He is asking questions he doesn't know how to answer. Can I trust her? Am I ready? What if I lose myself? What if I get hurt? These silent questions create fear, and fear makes him act as if nothing matters. From the outside, this looks like rejection. But rejection is not what's happening. What you are witnessing is a man wrestling with his unconscious. He feels the pull of attraction, but he also feels the risk of love. And love always demands something of him: honesty, commitment, change. To love means to let down the guard, to surrender the masks. And stage 2 is where he decides whether he can do that. This is why so many relationships end here. Women misinterpret his withdrawal as disinterest and either push harder or walk away. Meanwhile, he misinterprets his fear as a sign that maybe he shouldn't move forward. Two people who could have connected deeply lose their chance because they don't understand the hidden chaos of stage 2. But here's the truth: this stage is necessary. Without it, there is no real love. If a man skips this confrontation with himself, his feelings stay shallow. He might enjoy the spark, but he will never be transformed. Stage 2 forces him to test his own heart. It demands that he look at his fears, his past, his wounds, and decide if he is willing to step beyond them. For women, the challenge is patience. It is hard to watch someone you care about pull away. It feels personal, like you did something wrong. But stage 2 is not about you. It is about him. It is about the storm inside his own mind. Jung would call this the confrontation with the shadow, the part of himself he usually hides. In love, that shadow comes forward, and he must face it. Think of it this way. Stage 1 is the flame, stage 2 is the smoke. The flame was beautiful and warm, but the smoke clouds everything. It makes it hard to see clearly. And yet, if the smoke clears, the fire can burn stronger than ever. That is the gift of stage 2. It is not the end. It is the test. Most women never see this clearly. They believe his silence means he doesn't care. But the truth is, he cares so much it frightens him. He is trying to protect himself the only way he knows, by acting distant. If he can survive this storm, if he can face his fears instead of running from them, then love has a chance to deepen into something unshakable. The hidden chaos is uncomfortable, but it is sacred. It is the stage where his soul is deciding. Will I retreat or will I risk everything? That is why stage 2 is the most misunderstood and the most important. If you've ever felt trapped in these hidden patterns of love, there is a way to break free. The Jung Method guides you step by step to understand these cycles and finally reclaim your power. The link is pinned in the first comment. The fear behind his distance. When a man reaches the second stage of falling in love, he often creates distance. From the outside, this looks cold, frustrating, even cruel. One day he seems open, present, and full of energy. The next day he becomes distant, distracted, or even absent. Many women read this as rejection. They assume his interest has faded or that he never cared in the first place. But what looks like indifference is almost always fear. Carl Jung taught that love awakens not only the best in us, but also the deepest insecurities we carry. The unconscious is like a mirror. When a man begins to connect with someone deeply, that mirror forces him to see parts of himself he has ignored. Suddenly, old wounds resurface. Memories of rejection, betrayal, or failure in past relationships rise to the surface. The excitement of stage 1 now collides with the shadows of his past. This is why he pulls away. It is not that he has stopped feeling. It is that he feels too much. He needs space to make sense of it, because vulnerability is not natural for most men. Society often tells men to be strong, to stay in control, to hide their emotions. So when powerful emotions emerge, they feel like a threat. The distance he creates is his attempt to regain control over what feels overwhelming. For women, this stage is painful because it feels personal. You see him step back just when you thought things were growing deeper. You replay conversations wondering what you did wrong. But the truth is, this distance has little to do with you. It is about him confronting the risk of intimacy. To move forward, he must decide if he is willing to let go of control and face the unknown. Fear in this stage shows up in many ways. Sometimes it looks like silence, fewer texts, less communication. Sometimes it looks like distraction. He throws himself into work, hobbies, or friends to avoid facing what he feels. Sometimes it even looks like denial, acting as if nothing serious is happening, minimizing the connection. But underneath it all, fear is the real cause. Fear of rejection, fear of not being enough, fear of losing freedom, fear of being hurt again. Jung described this moment as a confrontation with the shadow. The shadow holds all the parts of ourselves we prefer to hide: weakness, insecurity, shame. Love shines a light on that shadow. Suddenly, a man can no longer pretend those parts of him don't exist. Being close to someone he cares about makes those fears louder, not quieter. That is why he creates distance, to buy time, to protect himself, to avoid the pain of being fully seen. But here lies the paradox. The very thing he fears, being vulnerable, is the key to real love. Until he accepts that fear and chooses to stay present anyway, he cannot move forward. This is why so many women misread this stage. They think his distance means he does not love them, when in fact it may mean he is closer to love than ever. He would not be afraid if nothing mattered. Fear is proof that his heart is at risk. For a woman, the challenge is not to chase him during this distance. Chasing often makes the fear worse because it pressures him when he is already overwhelmed. The wiser path is to hold your own ground, to recognize that his distance is not a rejection of your worth, but a reflection of his inner struggle. By staying steady, you give him space to resolve his fears without feeding them. Eventually, a man must decide, will he let fear control him, or will he step through it? If he chooses the first, he retreats, convincing himself the spark was temporary. If he chooses the second, he takes the risk of intimacy. That choice transforms him. He learns that love requires courage, and that courage always begins where fear once stood. Stage 3 is difficult because it tests not only his feelings but his character. It forces him to grow beyond old patterns. It demands self-honesty. Something Jung said is the foundation of individuation, the process of becoming whole. Without facing his fear, he cannot become whole in love. But if he does, then his distance turns into closeness stronger than ever before. So the next time you see a man pull away just as things are getting intense, remember, the distance is not emptiness, it is fear. And behind that fear lies the doorway to something deeper. If he chooses to walk through it, love moves from illusion to reality, the silent tests he creates. When a man begins to fall deeply in love, he often does something that confuses women the most. He creates silent tests. These are not games meant to hurt you, nor are they manipulative tricks. They are unconscious strategies he uses to protect himself, to measure the safety of his feelings, and to see if love can truly be trusted. To a woman, these tests may feel unfair, invisible, or frustrating, but to him, they are a survival mechanism born out of both fear and hope. Carl Jung believed that the unconscious always seeks balance. When a strong new feeling rises, the mind naturally tries to balance it with caution. For men, that caution often takes the form of tests. They rarely admit they are doing this, and sometimes they do not even realize it themselves. But watch closely, and you will see the patterns. One common silent test is withdrawal. He steps back to see how you respond. Do you panic? Do you chase? Do you hold your ground? To him, this is not cruelty. It is information. If you collapse when he pulls away, he may fear that the connection is fragile. If you remain steady, he feels reassured that you can handle the deeper stages of intimacy. Another silent test is inconsistency. He may act warm and attentive one moment, then cold and detached the next. This inconsistency is not proof that he has lost interest. Instead, it is his way of checking whether your feelings depend only on his highs, or whether you remain present through the lows. Jung would say this is the shadow at work, his fear of abandonment creating behaviors that almost invite abandonment. He may also test by silence. No message, no call, no reassurance. To you, this may feel like rejection, but for him, silence is a test of trust. Can you sit in the unknown without falling apart? Can you allow space without assuming the worst? These silent tests reveal more about his own insecurity than about your worth. Yet the way you respond shapes his decision to surrender or retreat. Why do men create these tests? Because falling in love feels like losing control, and men are taught to fear losing control. Love makes them vulnerable, exposes them, and threatens the walls they have built to protect themselves. The silent tests are his way of building evidence that this love will not destroy him. If he feels safe, he moves forward. If he feels threatened, he retreats. For women, the challenge is enormous. These tests are invisible, unspoken, and often confusing. You may ask yourself, why does he act like this? What changed? What did I do wrong? But remember, the tests are not about what you did. They are about what he fears. They are projections of his own shadow, not judgments of your value. Jung taught that projection is one of the most powerful forces in relationships. We project onto others the fears, doubts, and hopes we cannot fully accept in ourselves. In stage 4, men project their fears onto the woman they care about most. They test her not because she is weak, but because he is afraid of his own weakness. Responding to these silent tests requires patience and awareness. Chasing him when he withdraws often backfires. Becoming angry at his silence only feeds his fear. The best response is steadiness. To show him through your actions that you are not defined by his fluctuations, that your presence is not dependent on constant reassurance, that you can hold your own ground, even when he steps back. Of course, this does not mean tolerating disrespect or endless confusion. Silent tests should not become a prison. But when you see them for what they are, expressions of his hidden chaos, you can respond with wisdom instead of panic. This wisdom often makes the difference between a love that collapses in fear and a love that survives into surrender. In many ways, stage 4 is the most fragile. It is where women feel most tempted to give up, and where men feel most tempted to run. But it is also the stage that prepares him for surrender. If he sees that love can withstand his unconscious tests, he begins to believe in it. He begins to feel safe enough to lower the walls, to step out of fear, and to choose connection over control. The silent tests are confusing, yes, but they are also revealing. They show the raw truth of what happens when a man's heart is at risk. And if he passes through this stage, if he allows himself to trust what he feels, then the tests fade. What replaces them is the certainty of stage 5, the surrender he can no longer resist. The surrender he can't avoid. Every man who truly falls in love eventually reaches a point he cannot avoid. After the spark, after the chaos, after the silent tests, he finds himself standing at a crossroads. He can continue to resist, to hide behind fear and control, or he can surrender. This surrender is not weakness. It is the moment when love breaks through his defenses and transforms him from within. Carl Jung believed that individuation, the process of becoming whole, requires surrender. Not surrender to another person in the sense of losing oneself, but surrender to truth, to authenticity, to the deeper forces of the psyche. In love, this surrender takes shape when a man finally accepts that his feelings are real, that he cannot deny them, and that he must risk vulnerability if he wants something lasting. For men, this stage is both terrifying and liberating. On one hand, surrender means letting go of control. It means no longer pretending indifference, no longer playing games, no longer using distance as protection. On the other hand, surrender means peace. It means no longer fighting against what the soul already knows to be true. In this moment, he steps out of resistance and into devotion. Women often recognize this stage instantly. Suddenly, the man who seemed distant and unpredictable becomes consistent. He calls, he shows up, he shares what he feels. The tension of the earlier stages gives way to stability. He no longer hides his interest because hiding has become impossible. Love has taken root too deeply, but this surrender is not automatic. It comes only after the tests of stage 2 and stage 4 have been passed. A man surrenders when he feels that love is safe enough to trust. This does not mean perfect. It does not mean free of conflict. It means he has seen that the connection can survive fear, silence, and doubt. Once he knows this, surrender becomes not just possible but inevitable. What does surrender look like inside him? It is a quiet shift. His fears are still present, but they no longer control him. His doubts still whisper, but they no longer dominate. His heart takes the lead. He begins to think less about protecting himself and more about protecting the bond. He stops asking, "What if I get hurt?" and starts asking, "What can I do to make this work?" This is why surrender is so powerful. It changes the entire direction of love. Before this stage, love is fragile. It depends on moods, fears, and shadows. After this stage, love becomes stronger. It has passed through fire and survived. Jung would call this transformation, the point where the unconscious and the conscious begin to work together instead of against each other. For women, stage 5 often feels like the reward. Finally, he is consistent. Finally, his words match his actions. Finally, you can relax into the connection without wondering if he will disappear. But it is important to understand what it took for him to arrive here. He did not simply decide one day. He wrestled with himself. He faced fears that may have haunted him for years. He tested not only you, but his own strength. His surrender is not casual. It is the result of deep inner work. This is also why the surrender cannot be rushed. Many women try to push a man into commitment before he is ready. They want stage 5 before he has gone through stage 2, 3, and 4. But love that is forced will not last. True surrender only comes when it grows naturally out of struggle. If he has not faced his fears, he will retreat again. But if he has, then his surrender will be firm, steady, and real. Stage 5 is the turning point of male love. It is the proof that the spark was not just chemistry, that the chaos was not just confusion, that the tests were not just fear. It is the point where a man says with his actions, "I choose this, I choose you." And once he makes that choice, it reshapes everything. Surrender does not mean perfection. There will still be disagreements, challenges, and shadows. But it does mean commitment. It means he is no longer fighting against love, but fighting for it. It means he sees the bond as worth protecting, worth growing, worth risking for. This is the heart of real intimacy. So when a man reaches the surrender he cannot avoid, you are not seeing weakness. You are seeing strength. The strength to stop hiding, the strength to face fear, the strength to give himself fully. And in that surrender, love finally moves from possibility to reality. The shift from wanting to choosing. In the early stages of love, desire often feels like something that happens to us. A man feels the spark, he feels attraction, he feels drawn, in ways he cannot fully explain. At first it is not a choice and it is a reaction, but true love does not stop at wanting. At some point it must shift into choosing. This stage marks one of the most important transformations in the male journey of falling in love. Carl Jung believed that freedom is not the absence of influence, but the ability to act consciously despite influence. Desire pulls a man toward someone, but until he chooses, it remains fragile. Wanting is passive, choosing is active. This stage is where he decides whether to stay or walk away, not because of impulse, but because of intention. For many men, this shift feels heavy. Wanting is easy. It requires nothing more than emotion. Choosing, however, demands responsibility. When a man chooses, he is saying, I will place my energy here. I will stay even when it is difficult. I will stand by what I feel instead of running when fear returns. That step is frightening because it means leaving behind the comfort of detachment. Up until now, he could hide behind excuses. He could blame fear, timing, or uncertainty. But stage 6 forces clarity. Does he want to continue drifting, or does he want to anchor himself in something real? This is where many men hesitate, because choice exposes them. A man who chooses love also chooses vulnerability. For women, this stage often explains why a relationship suddenly feels different. Before, his presence may have been inconsistent. After, his consistency grows. He makes plans. He shows up. He does not simply want you when it is convenient. He chooses you even when it is hard. That is the mark of the shift. It is the transition from emotional pull to conscious commitment. Jung would describe this as integration. The unconscious attraction has now been acknowledged by the conscious mind. What began as instinct is now united with decision. This integration gives love stability, because it is no longer at the mercy of fleeting feelings. It has become a path he has decided to walk. The difference between wanting and choosing is profound. Wanting is self-centered. I want you because you make me feel good. Choosing is relational. I choose you because together we can build something meaningful. Wanting asks, what do I get? Choosing asks, what do I give? That is why this stage transforms a man from a seeker of pleasure into a partner in growth. For many women, the shift feels like relief. They no longer have to question his intentions every day. They no longer have to wonder if he will stay. His actions speak more clearly than words. He invests his time, energy, and heart in the relationship, not because he has to, but because he has chosen to. This is where trust begins to deepen. Still, it is important to recognize that choosing does not eliminate fear. Doubts may still whisper, shadows may still rise. But once a man chooses, he handles fear differently. Instead of letting fear control him, he works through it. Instead of running, he stays. This is the power of conscious decision. Stage 6 is also where growth accelerates. By choosing, he begins to see the relationship not just as a source of comfort, but as a mirror for his own development. Jung often emphasized that relationships are laboratories of the soul. Through the bond with another, we face parts of ourselves we cannot face alone. Choosing love means agreeing to that laboratory, to the tests, the lessons, the transformation. For the woman, this stage also demands awareness. A man who has shifted from wanting to choosing will still need support, not in the form of chasing or pressure, but in the form of authenticity. He will grow as much as the relationship allows him to grow. Your honesty, your presence, your boundaries all matter deeply here. Choosing is his step, but co-creating stability is a shared path. The shift from wanting to choosing may not be dramatic from the outside. There are no fireworks, no sudden revelations. Instead, it feels like quiet consistency. He calls, he listens, he stays. The drama of earlier stages fades into something steadier, something that holds. This steadiness is often misunderstood as less passion, but in truth, it is the foundation of lasting love. Passion without choice fades. Passion with choice endures. Ultimately, this stage proves whether the earlier sparks meant anything real. Many men feel desire. Few men learn to choose. But those who do unlock the possibility of true intimacy. They move from impulse to intention, from shadow to integration, from self-protection to connection. This is why stage 6 is so powerful. It is not about butterflies or fireworks, it is about decision. It is the moment when a man no longer just wants, he chooses. And in that choice, love becomes something he cannot easily undo. It becomes part of who he is. The signs he has fallen for real. By the time a man reaches this stage, the signs of real love begin to reveal themselves clearly. They are no longer hidden beneath fear, disguised by distance, or confused with desire alone. Real love has weight, consistency, and presence. And though every man expresses it differently, there are patterns that psychology and Jung's insights into the unconscious help us see. The first sign is consistency. In the earlier stages, his behavior may have been unpredictable. Hot one day, cold the next. Silent, then suddenly expressive. But when he has truly fallen in love, the inconsistency fades. He shows up. He communicates regularly, not because he feels pressure, but because he wants to. His actions stop depending on mood swings. They grow steady, like the ground beneath your feet. Jung would say this is when unconscious chaos begins to harmonize with the conscious mind. The storm quiets, and what remains is clarity. The second sign is openness. Real love cannot survive in silence. A man who has surrendered to his feelings begins to share more of himself. He may not pour out every detail, but he allows vulnerability. He talks about his fears, his hopes, his struggles. He lets you see the parts of himself he usually keeps hidden. This is no small thing. For many men, vulnerability feels dangerous. When he shows it, it means love has softened the walls he once thought unbreakable. Another sign is investment, not only of time, but of energy and attention. He begins to think beyond the moment. He makes plans that include you. He considers how his choices affect the relationship. He invests not because he has to, but because he sees you as part of his life's direction. This shift from me to we is one of the clearest signs that he has truly fallen. The fourth sign is protection, not in the sense of control, but in the sense of care. He looks out for your well-being. He notices when you are tired, when you are burdened, when something weighs on your mind. Love makes him attentive to your world, not just his own. Jung often noted that love awakens the archetype of the protector in men, a deep, unconscious urge to shield what matters most. But perhaps the most powerful sign is peace. In the beginning, love feels like fire, intense, unpredictable, consuming. When it matures, it feels like warmth, steady, calm, and life-giving. If he has truly fallen, you will feel it in his presence. He no longer makes you question where you stand. He no longer creates drama just to test the bond. His love gives stability, and in that stability, trust can grow. For women, recognizing these signs is important, but equally important is understanding what they cost him. He did not arrive here easily. He wrestled with his shadow, with doubts, with fear of rejection. His consistency is the result of choosing against withdrawal. His openness is the result of facing the terror of vulnerability. His investment is the result of surrendering the need for total freedom. His peace is the result of surviving inner chaos. Jung would remind us that real transformation comes only through conflict. Love is no exception. The man who shows these signs has been changed. He is no longer just a man who felt a spark. He is a man who allowed love to reshape him. That reshaping is what makes his feelings real. It is tempting to think of signs only as actions, calls, texts, plans. But the deeper, signs are felt, not counted. You feel his presence even in silence. You sense his commitment even when he doesn't say the words. You notice that his love has shifted from temporary excitement to steady devotion. These are the signs that matter most. At this stage, the woman also has a choice. Real love is not one-sided. When a man shows he has truly fallen, the relationship becomes a mirror. It reflects back not only his transformation, but also your own readiness. Are you willing to meet his openness with openness of your own? Are you willing to match his consistency with steadiness? Are you ready to build with him, not just receive from him? Because love, as Jung described, is always two souls meeting, in truth. One cannot carry all of it alone. The signs that he has fallen for real are not just signals of his devotion, they are invitations. Invitations to step into a deeper partnership, one that requires both people to grow. Stage 7 is beautiful because it shows that the journey was worth it. The spark was real, but it wasn't enough. The chaos was painful, but it had purpose. The tests were confusing, but they revealed strength. And now, the signs of real love shine through all of it. They are steady, clear, and undeniable. The lesson women must remember. By the time a man has gone through all the stages of falling in love, the journey feels complete. He has experienced the spark, battled chaos, tested in silence, faced fear, surrendered, shifted from wanting to choosing, and shown the signs of real love. But for women, the question remains, what is the lesson to carry forward? Because while it is powerful to understand his stages, the deeper truth is that your own path matters just as much. Carl Jung often emphasized that relationships are mirrors. What you see in another reflects something inside yourself. When you watch a man pull away, you face your own fear of abandonment. When you see him test you in silence, you meet your own insecurity. When he finally surrenders, you are invited to surrender to your own authenticity. This is the hidden lesson. His stages are not just about him. They awaken growth in you. The first lesson women must remember is patience. Love is not linear, and men do not move through these stages quickly. The spark feels instant, but the real work takes time. Too often women expect consistency too early, mistaking stage 1 or stage 2 for the final answer. Patience allows the process to unfold. Without it, you may walk away before he has even had the chance to surrender. The second lesson is not to take his fear personally. When he pulls back, it is easy to assume you are the cause. But stage 3 and stage 4 are not about your flaws. They are about his inner conflict. If you believe his distance is proof of your unworthiness, you may react in ways that only feed his fear. The deeper truth is that his battle belongs to him. Your worth does not depend on how quickly he resolves it. The third lesson is to hold your ground. During his silent tests, many women lose themselves trying to prove their value. They chase, they overgive, they abandon their own needs to win his reassurance. But real love cannot grow on self-betrayal. Jung taught that wholeness comes when we honor all parts of ourselves, not when we shrink to please others. The greatest gift you can give in those moments is your steadiness, to remain grounded in your truth while he wrestles with his own. The fourth lesson is to recognize that surrender must be mutual. A man's surrender is powerful, but it does not build a relationship alone. When he finally lowers his defenses, he needs to meet someone who is also willing to be authentic. If you hold on to your own masks, the bond will never deepen. The invitation of stage 5 is not only his surrender, it is yours. The fifth lesson is to see the difference between wanting and choosing. Just as he must move from desire to commitment, so must you. Wanting love is easy. Choosing love requires courage. It means staying present not only in passion but also in conflict. It means showing up not only when he is strong, but also when he is vulnerable. Choosing love is a daily act, one that creates a foundation neither spark nor desire alone can hold. The sixth lesson is to trust the signs of real love, not illusions. Words are powerful, but actions reveal truth. Consistency, openness, investment, and peace. These are the marks of love that has passed through fire. Do not mistake early intensity for permanence. Learn to wait for the signs that last. The final lesson, and perhaps the most important, is to remember your own soul. Understanding his stages is valuable, but losing yourself in them is dangerous. Jung would remind you that love is a path of individuation for both partners. It is not about dissolving into the other, but about becoming more whole in the presence of another. The stages he walks through are his transformation. The way you respond to them is yours. In the end, the lesson women must remember is simple yet profound. Love is not about control, but about growth. You cannot rush his stages, you cannot rescue him from his fears, and you cannot test for him. What you can do is honor your own path, remain authentic, and allow love to unfold as a shared journey. When you do this, something powerful happens. His stages and your lessons weave together, creating a bond that is not built only on desire, but on transformation. And that kind of love, tested, chosen, and remembered, is the only love that truly lasts.